Is your grocery bill creeping up like a cheap pair of boxers? Welcome to the club. Membership requires you surrender your sanity and probably the fancy cheese you love. Based on data gathered from August 18th to August 25th, 2024, the U.S. Census Bureau says the average American family of four is now dishing out about $275 per week on groceries. Yes, you heard that right. About $1,100 a month. At that rate, it feels like you're paying more for groceries than rent. So why the hefty price tag on your Cheese Whiz and potatoes? Well, between 2019 and 2023, the cost of food at home shot up by about 25%. So why did it happen? Blame it on a mix of supply chain chaos and lockdown-fueled hoarding. During the pandemic, everyone started grabbing everything off the shelves and normally in bulk and began hoarding it. As demand skyrocketed and supply dwindled, prices looked not so friendly. So the pandemic's over and the supply chain problem is fixed. Why are prices still so high? Well, it turns out the people making profits off those high prices got a little addicted. They figure if we're paying it then, why lower the price? Today, we're looking at the 10 states where the average family pays the most for weekly groceries. You're gonna be surprised. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Louisiana. Groceries in Louisiana are hitting wallets hard, and it's not just a random twist of fate. A big part of the issue comes down to location. Louisiana imports a significant amount of its food from other states, which means transportation costs are always in the mix. And with fuel prices doing their own roller coaster impression, those added expenses keep getting passed right down to the shoppers. Add the fact that Louisiana's infrastructure, its roads, ports, all of that, face some wear and tear from frequent hurricanes and floods, on top of not really updating a lot of their infrastructure. Those roads don't get fixed for free, right? That delays shipments, that costs more fuel. They figure all that in. Another factor driving up the prices is Louisiana's agricultural output is heavily weighted towards certain crops, like sugarcane, rice, and soybeans, while relying on imports for much of its fresh produce and meats available in stores. This creates a dependency on out-of-state supply for a lot of everyday grocery items, which opens the door to price hikes. Louisiana's humid subtropical climate, while lovely for crawfish, isn't the easiest on perishable goods. The cost of keeping things fresh, especially in the sweltering summer months, requires more cold storage and rapid turnover, adding yet more reasons why your grocery bill might seem higher during the summer humidity. The average family in Louisiana pays $285.95 a week on groceries. Number 9, Texas. If you've noticed your grocery bill in Texas feels a little high, you're definitely not alone. A big reason behind Texas' high grocery costs is the sheer distance goods need to travel. So much of Texas's food supply is coming from out of state, or even out of country. Transportation costs are always a major factor. Texas might be blessed with oil, but fueling trucks hauling fresh produce from California or meats from the Midwest, that adds up, especially when gas prices spike. And with Texas' vast rural areas and big cities spread far apart, even within the state, it's not a simple or cheap task for those shelves to be stocked. But it's not just geography that's squeezing your wallet at checkout. Texas has been experiencing a population boom, and demand for food has gone up as new residents flood into the cities. More people eating means more groceries are needed, which drives up prices. On top of that, Texas faces its share of extreme weather events, from droughts to ice storms that disrupt the local agriculture and, of course, driving up costs of Texas-grown products. So next time you're at a store in Texas wondering why your grocery bill could fund a small road trip, just remember it's a mix of high demand, long distances, and Texas-sized challenges. The average Texas family pays about $288.19 a week on groceries. Number 8, New Mexico. Groceries in New Mexico have gotten pricier for a mix of reasons, some of which are tied to its unique geography, like a lot of other states, especially in the West. For starters, New Mexico is pretty far from any major agricultural hubs, and shipping ports, that's another thing they're a little short on. which means transporting fresh produce and other perishable items into the state rack up transportation costs pretty quick. Of course, there's the higher fuel problems, just like every state faces, so the cost to get food on the shelves quickly adds up, and unfortunately, those expenses often trickle down to the consumer. Plus, the state's smaller population means less demand compared to states with bustling metropolis areas, so stores don't get the big bulk discounts that can help them keep the prices a little bit lower. Another reason for their sky-high grocery costs is drought and limited local agricultural output. It's a desert. They don't grow a lot there. Water scarcity has hit this state hard, and farmers struggle to maintain consistent crop yields. Add the rising costs of labor and packaging, and you've got a recipe for expensive grocery trips. So whether it's fresh avocados or a gallon of milk, New Mexicans end up shelling out a bit more just to fill the fridge. Now, they do grow some things, but they're not like California or Kansas or Nebraska. The average family in New Mexico pays $288.39 a week for groceries. Number 7, Florida. Florida, the land of sunshine and theme parks and apparently eyebrow-raising grocery bills. One reason Florida is paying a premium for their pasta and produce is logistics. You'd think with all that sunshine, fresh fruits and vegetables would be falling out of the skies, but Florida's position on a peninsula actually makes it a bit trickier to transport goods efficiently. Everything has to come down those narrow, traffic-laden highways, battling both tourists and hurricanes to reach the shelves. And guess who foots the bill for that trek? That's right, your wallet. And then there's the we want to eat fresh all year situation. With Florida's bustling tourism industry, grocery stores need to keep themselves stocked year-round, which means importing items that might not be locally available. That premium on out-of-state produce and other high-demand items, combined with the extra costs from labor shortages and supply chain disruptions, keeps prices inflated. Florida, over the last few years, has chased a lot of their migrant workers out of the fields or out of the state, pretty much. This has cost its agricultural industry a little bit more just to get the stuff off the plant. So when you're picking up that $8 carton of strawberries in December, remember, you're paying for more than just the fruit. You're paying for the privilege of eating summer berries in a state that's decided winter isn't a thing. The average family in Florida pays $289.27 a week on groceries. Number 6, Washington. If you're living in Washington and wincing every time you check out at the grocery store, you're not imagining things. Groceries here are very expensive. Washington has some of the highest transportation costs in the country, and all those kale bundles and organic peanut butter jars just don't roll down the I-5 on their own. The state's vast stretches of rural and remote areas make it pricier to get goods where they need to go. And let's not forget those environmental regulations. While excellent for keeping the air clean and the salmon happy, it also adds a little extra to your grocery tab. Now, there's this love affair this state has with local, fresh, and organic everything. That's great for your health and the environment, but local and organic translate to let's add a few extra dollars on there. It's also not cheap to grow crops or raise livestock in a state that's known for drizzly weather. And when it comes to labor costs, Washington's minimum wage is one of the highest in the country. So while we're paying workers fairly, those wages show up in the price of your carrots and cherries. So why is it expensive in Washington? Well, they cave to a lot of different liberal-leaning ideologies. I believe in eco-friendly, but sometimes it goes a little too far. I believe in ethically sourced, too, and sometimes it might go a little far. The average family in Washington pays $289.67 a week for groceries. Number 5, Mississippi. Why are groceries in Mississippi so pricey? You'd think with all that farmland and fresh produce being grown in-state, prices would be about as friendly as a chatty bartender. But no, turns out that getting all that farm-fresh goodness from the field to shelf isn't as easy or as cheap as it sounds. A few of the biggest issues they have is infrastructure, rural communities are everywhere, and workforce shortages. Then there's the added charm of a state where wages aren't exactly skyrocketing. With lower income levels and higher poverty rates, the cost of living and eating hit a little bit harder. Basically, the high grocery prices have decided to be an uninvited guest to Mississippi's financial party. Top that all off with Mississippi's grocery tax. It's one of the highest in the country. Mississippi is only one of 13 states that actually tax grocery purchases, and they are the highest. Now, a lot of the states don't have a grocery tax or any kind of food tax, but in reality, they kind of do. They're just not imposing it on your purchase. The transportation companies, the gas taxes, things like that all add up. The average family in Mississippi pays $292.64 a week for groceries. Number 4, Nevada. If you're scratching your head wondering why buying groceries in Nevada feels like you're trying to win at a high-stakes poker game, you're not alone. Nevada's unique geographical setup means a lot of its food has to travel a long way to make it to the store shelves. Shipping companies have a field day charging extra for those long hauls, and that gets passed right on to us. So you're not just buying a loaf of bread, you're funding an epic journey to your pantry. On top of that, Nevada's really not some sprawling farmland feeding grocery stores. It's mostly casinos and desert. You know what grows out in deserts? Cactus. When was the last time you saw someone that had a plate full of cactus? The lack of local farming means that they're pretty much reliant on other states for produce, meats, and of course dairy. So in essence, by the time groceries reach Nevada, they've picked up a whole entourage of costs. It's almost like California, they call it the sunshine tax. You know, it's the cost of living. They just act like it's a tax. Nevada's got the desert tax. You're paying extra because everything's so far out of the frickin' way. In Nevada, the average family of 4 spends $294.76 a week on groceries. Number 3, California. You probably thought California was going to be number 1 because everything's expensive in California. Not so much. People rarely talk about this because there's other conversations you can have about California, but California is one of the biggest farming states in the country. That's the only reason they're at number 3. But it does turn out that California's high cost of living isn't just for housing. It's crept right into the aisles of your local supermarket. It's a perfect storm of factors to blame, starting with labor costs. Since California has one of the highest minimum wages in the country, you're effectively helping cover the premium for every organic apple and gluten muffin on those shelves. It's like you should get a little thank you every time you swipe your credit card that says, "Thank you for paying our employees a living wage." Now, I'm not talking bad about the living wage. I think it's necessary. Still sucks that it's got to raise the prices on everything. Of course, they also have to deal with the state's famously strict environmental regulations. Yes, those reusable bags and cage-free eggs come at a price, and the price is somehow always more than you planned on spending. Between droughts that make water-intensive crops costlier and transportation costs thanks to California's eco-friendly fuel standards, just about every avocado has a layer of green guilt tax baked into it. So the next time you're at the checkout wondering why your total looks more like your car payment, remember, you're not just buying groceries in California, you're buying into a lifestyle. The average family of 4 in California pays about $298.72 a week on groceries. Number 2, Alaska. Alaska should be no surprise. We've talked about it at length, and everybody knows since it's so far away, a lot of things got to get shipped there, and shipping obviously is expensive. They also got people spread out all over the state, which adds even more to the transportation costs. Everything there is expensive except for salmon, and I guess moose and squirrel meat. On top of that, you got brutal winters, low population density, and supply chains that sound like they should come with a warning label. This is a state that only has about 1,400 miles of road, and half the time it's frozen. The average Alaskan family of 4 pays $329.71 a week on groceries. All right, before we get to number 1, I thought I'd share these with you. These are the 5 cheapest grocery chains according to U.S. News. Food for Less, no frills warehouse-style chain with locations in Illinois, Indiana, and California. Grocery Outlet, a chain with over 450 stores across 8 states. Winco Foods, now this is the one I go to all the time. They have 130 stores across 10 states. Of course, Walmart's everywhere. They have over 10,000 stores. And number 5 is Aldi, a discount grocery store that everyone says has the best deals. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Hawaii. Yep, everything I said about Alaska is pretty much the same here, except the frozen roads part. Everything's got to be shipped that isn't a pineapple, macadamia nut, or seafood. They do have some of other things there, but not enough to really maintain the population. So they do have to have a lot of stuff shipped to the islands. Groceries in Hawaii cost a small fortune because of this. We're talking ships and planes, and their fuel costs are expensive and logistics are insane. You might buy a case of Campbell's soup and it's probably got more frequent flyer miles than the average YouTube travel channel. The average family spends $336.88 on groceries a week in Hawaii. Alright, that's today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, love it if you give it a big thumbs up. And if you did enjoy it, you probably enjoy one of the 2 videos being suggested right now. Everyone have a great day. Be nice to each other.